Hey guys, Seaweed from Tribal Soup Project here. Welcome to another episode of SIMsational. You're watching the Ultimate Builder's Guide, and today is going to be all about fountains and waterfalls. So we're going to start out talking about how to use the fountain tools, and then we're going to go into waterfalls, and I'm going to show you guys how to make two different types of waterfalls. The first kind that I'm going to show you how to make it doesn't require any special packs. You can do this method with base game only. And then the second type of waterfall that you can create, you will need island living. So we're going to go ahead and kickstart this off with how to use the fountain tools. The fountain tools are located right over here next to the little tree. And these work very similarly to how the pool tools work. We have our three standard methods of application. So we've got our draw a box method that allows us to click on a point and drag and then release the mouse button to actually drop the fountain. We've got our custom fountain tool that allows us to create unique designs by clicking on points and dragging and then finishing at our beginning point. And then we've got our click and drop method, which is basically just pre-made fountain shapes that we click and drop onto our lot. So once these fountains are placed on the lot, we can edit the size of them by clicking on them and using the arrows at either side to pull them out or to bring them back in to make them smaller. We also have the arrows that are in the center, which will raise the terrain underneath the fountain like so. Additionally to that, we also have the additional menu that allows us to rotate the fountain, allows us to pick it up and move it, and it also allows us to copy it as well. So we can only place fountains on the ground outside. We cannot place a fountain inside the house. We cannot place a fountain on the roof. And we cannot even place a fountain on top of a deck, even if it's a deck that is completely flush to the ground, as this one is. Boom is not a possibility in our world at this time. So once we have our fountain laid, there are different things that we can do to change the look of it. We've got first all of these different fountain trims, and they all come in different color swatches, and it's just like a little lip that raises up off the ground, and this can be used also if the terrain is raised underneath it like so. So this is one of those objects, these trims. You cannot change the color of them with the design tool. You do have to grab the new color that you want and drag it over to it individually. And the other thing that we could do to change the look is by adding a floor pattern to it. And I like this one. And I'm simply holding down Shift on my keyboard to make the floor tile go across the entire thing. Then additionally to that, we can change the color of the water if we come over here to our pools and then choose water pool styles, and then we can change the color of the water like so. So once we have our fountain in, it is up to us to add our own water emitters. And we have all these different ones, and they all do different things. We've got leaping water emitters, we've got dancing water emitters, we've got skipping stone ones. We've got different shapes of them. And they even all come in different colors like so. We've got a pretty red and blue and green and yellow and orange and purple. Ooh. So those are different water emitters that we can put in the fountains. And you just lay them like so, and you can create your own designs if you would like to. And most of these are not going to allow us to see it unless we're in play mode. But some of them do have the preview like you see here. So we can only put these water emitters inside the actual fountains themselves normally. But there is a cheat that we can enter in to put these water emitters not inside of the fountain. And the first thing that we need to do is open the cheat box by pressing and holding Control Shift and the letter C on the keyboard. And then the cheat you need to enter in is bb.moveObjects. And then escape to exit out of the cheat box. And now we can place our water emitters on the ground outside. We can place them inside the house, on the roof, on decks, yada, yada, yada. And excuse me. Then additionally to that, underneath, we have different fountain decorations. We've got our algae and our water lilies and our water reeds. Those are so cool. We've got our different floor decals. We've got lights we can put in them. We've got different waterfalls. We can even put a fountain inside a fountain. Isn't that neat? So those are all the different kinds of fountains that we can create, at least regular types of fountains that we can create, and how to use those fountain tools. So we are next going to move on to base game waterfalls. So in order to build a waterfall, there are a couple of things that you have to know how to do first before you can begin. The first thing is you have to be able to overlap the different objects like the stones and plants that we're going to use to create the waterfall. And you do have to use the cheat to do this. So we're going to open up our cheat box by pressing and holding Control Shift and the letter C on the keyboard. And then the code to be able to overlap objects is bb.moveObjects. And then we hit enter and then escape to exit out of the cheat box. And we now have the ability to overlap objects in the game like so. So the next thing that you are going to have to know how to do is how to raise objects off of the ground. And that is done very simply by holding the Alt key on the keyboard and pressing the number 9 to raise it up. And then if you want to lower it back down, you're going to hold down the Alt key and press the number 0 to lower it back down. Additionally to that, we need to know how to move objects freely. And what I mean is when we place objects in the game, they are automatically going to snap into the grid so that the object is in some way overlapping these grid lines, whether they're the perforated ones or the solid ones. But if we hold down the Alt key while we have the object selected, we can freely place the object wherever we would like in the game, even not on top of a grid line. So the last thing that you're going to have to know how to do is how to make objects bigger and smaller in the game. And that is also very simply done by holding down the Shift key and pressing the right hand bracket to make them bigger. And then to make them smaller, you would hold down Shift and hit the left-handed bracket to make them smaller. Just like that. And now we're ready to begin building our waterfalls. So this is an example of a base game waterfall. All of these objects that I've used to create it are from simply the base game. And this is actually really simple to do. And to be perfectly honest with you, a waterfall in The Sims is just kind of like a glorified fountain. Or a glorified pool that has a really cool fountain that goes in it. Because your Sims can actually swim in this water as well. So we're going to go over to build mode and I'm going to show you guys how to create this. So in order to build our base game waterfall, we're going to begin with a pool. And I'm going to begin with just this octagon pool, and I'm simply going to pull it out. This is not something that has to be done perfectly. If I were not doing a tutorial and I was going to spend a bunch of time doing it, I would probably place a bunch of different octagons together and pull them all out at funny angles. But I'm not going to spend too much time doing that. I'm just going to leave it like that. And even when you do it in the game, the edges of the pool are going to be covered up anyways. What you're trying to achieve is an effect that is not like a square pool. You want it to be something that looks kind of natural. So now that we've got our pool laid, and let's pull it out just a little bit further. Let's pull it out a little bit further, like so. Just like that. That's good. So now that we have our pool laid, we're going to try to make this pool look more natural. And we're going to begin by changing the trim to a brown because there's going to be plants that go along the edge of the trim. So brown's a good color because, of course, you would have dirt underneath the plants. So the next thing that we're going to do to try and make this pool look more natural is we are going to change the wall pattern on the inside of it to this rustic river stone. And then I'm going to change the floor pattern to these rustic pavers, like so. And that looks much more natural. So now that we have our pool finished, we're ready to go ahead and start building our waterfall. So we're going to come over here to these rocks. And we are simply going to begin I usually begin with a silent sentinel rock because it's the rock that most resembles a mountain if it were big, and we are going to make it big. So I'm going to scale it up, and then I'm going to place it. And then I am going to scale up to, ooh, that is too big. So I'm going to scale this one up also and maybe rotate it a little to make it look a little different. And then I'm going to do one more of this and scale this one up as well. And then place them kind of like that. And then I'm going to grab a couple more of these and just place them around. You want to kind of create a natural look. And I think, and this is, I mean, it doesn't have to be like real perfect because you are going to want to put some kind of like greenery around it. And this looks pretty good to me. I think, oops, I did scaled it down instead of big. So I think this looks pretty good. This looks good to me. So that's good enough for the purpose of the tutorial. So now that maybe I'll have one more big one over here. Why do I keep scaling down? Scale up. Thank you, Jesus. Okay. Just like that. And maybe take another one of these and scale this up too. There, that looks better. Okay, so now that I've got my rocks on there, I'm ready to go ahead and start placing my water emitters. So we're going to come over here to the fountains and then choose the water emitters. And I'm going to begin with this spraying water emitter here. And as you can see by looking at it, it is going to spray out in kind of a curve effect, which is how we would want the waterfall. So when we place water emitters in the game, we don't have to hold anything to place more than once. The game will automatically place it and have the next one ready for you. So what we're going to do when we are placing these water emitters is we're going to hold down the Alt key in order to place them freely exactly where we want. Because if we're not going to hold down the Alt key, the game is going to automatically snap that emitter to the grid. And then you're going to have all these like strange spaces when you really need the water to be all right next to each other. And I'll just show you what I mean. It's automatically snapping to the grid. And that would leave all this space in between where there really should be more water if it's a natural waterfall. So I'm simply going to hold down the Alt key. And I'm going to begin by placing these small water emitters all along the bottom layer of the rocks here. And then after I've placed my small ones, I'm going to come over to the medium ones. And I'm going to place them all along the rocks up here above those. And then finally, I'm going to take the large water emitters and repeat the same process again. Now, sometimes in there, depending on how high of your how high your rocks are. If you see when we look at this angle here, it looks pretty tall, and that's not really tall enough. We would really want the water to also come out a little bit higher. So that's why you kind of have to know how to raise objects off the ground, because as I'm placing these large water emitters, I'm going to want to put some of them up here like so coming out. And then as an addition to these water emitters, you might want to place a couple of, not those, the couple of the dome water emitters just for good measure. It just completes the look a little bit when you have like a little variation of different kinds of water emitters. It makes it look a little bit more complete. So I am going to go ahead and put in our water emitters. So now that I have all my water emitters placed, I'm ready to go ahead and start placing my plants. So I'm actually going to begin with these trees. And the one that I like to use the most, I think, is this, yeah, it's this mesquite tree. And as you can see, this tree is really big. So I'm going to scale it down some. I think I'm going to scale it down to about there. And this will allow me to cover a big patch with this green growth. If you wanted green growth, if you're like having like kind of like a desert town, maybe you're building a tiki bar over at Oasis Springs, and you really don't want a bunch of greenery. You don't have to put greenery on your rocks at all. I just think it looks a little bit more natural when you do add the greenery. So I'm going to start out with that one, and then I'm going to take one more and put another one over here. I think that looks good, I think, like that. And the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to use the different grasses. I'm going to scale the grass up so it's bigger. It covers more of a space. And then I'm going to raise it so that it kind of comes up here at the top of this, like so. Let me actually come back here so that I make sure I'm not like having an awkward section where the grass is. I think that looks good like that. That looks pretty good. And that just gives it a little bit of a variation on there. So, and then I think maybe I'll take one of these and raise this up like so. You just want to create kind of like a natural look of a couple different green things like so. And scale this one up a little, like that. Come to the back again to make sure. So see how it looks a little awkward there? It's like kind of just floating there. So it's up a little too high. So I really needed to lower it down a little bit. And then I'll just take one more of these and raise this up so that it covers this little area right there. And that looks good. That's a good natural look, I think. So, oh, nope, that doesn't look natural like this at all. That looks terrible. Let me lower it down just a little bit. I think, there. No. Wait, hey, go back up. There we go. Like that. That looks pretty good, I think. I don't know. I don't like how this looks right here like this. Let me move this over slightly. There, that looks good. Okay. So now that I've got my greenery on my rocks, I'm ready to go ahead and just start placing my plants all around my pool. And if you want your Sims to be able to swim in it, you of course are going to have to leave an open section for your Sims to actually get in the pool. So all that is left to do is to paint the terrain so that it looks a little bit more natural. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use a dark dirt to go underneath my plants like so. And just to show you what I mean, it defines it. It really makes the entire thing pop when you do put brown underneath your plants like so. And then I'll probably put a bunch of different sandy colors coming out here. So it's like a little beach where the Sims are going to get in and out of our pool. So this is how the second type of waterfall I'm going to show you guys how to create will look. And like I had said, you do need to have island living installed into your game to build this kind of waterfall. So let's get started. In order to build the second kind of waterfall, you are going to have island living installed into your game. Additionally to that, you are going to have to know how to have access to the hidden objects in the game. And these are the objects like these different fences and the different light posts and other things in the game that we're not usually supposed to have access to. So we're going to go ahead and start out by opening our cheat box. And the first code is going to be bb.show hidden objects. And then we hit enter. And then to enable us to have access to over 1,000 more of these objects, the code is bb.show live edit objects. And then we hit enter. And then we now have access to all these different objects in the game that we're not supposed to have access to. So the objects that we need to use in particular are from the Island Living expansion. So because there are just so many of these hidden objects, it can take a long time to scroll through all of them in the game because they're not organized in any real way. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to filter my items by choosing Island Living here. And then I'm going to come over here to the search bar and I'm going to type in debug and hit enter. And now I can scroll down and I have access to a bunch of stuff that I'm not usually supposed to have access to. And we're going to begin building this waterfall. And when you begin building this waterfall, you're kind of going to go in reverse than the last waterfall we built. We're actually going to start with a waterfall. And it can be kind of hard to see it because it's like kind of translucent. But here it is down here. And like I said, these things aren't really organized in any real way. So you kind of have to scroll through them. So I'm going to begin by taking this waterfall. And as you can see, it does have a very large grid. And you cannot, just as a side note, you cannot size these up. I can't make it bigger or smaller. It is what it is. So I'm going to begin by placing that right here like so. Now that I have my waterfall there, I need to add my rocks that go underneath the waterfall where the waterfall is coming out of. So I like to begin by using these, not that one. Where's that? Where's it at? I like to begin by using other rocks, not the one that I have. Where's it at? It's here somewhere. I know you're here. Is that it? Nope, that's not it. That's almost it. That was almost it. Where's it at? Here it is, right here. So I like to begin with these because they're really at about the right size. And I'm simply going to put that coming right about right here on the edge, like so. So then the ones I like to use coming down a little bit further is this one here. And this is pretty big, so you're going to have to scale it down. So I'm actually one higher than that. So I'm going to begin by closing in my corners like so, because as you can see, if I turn my camera, it's just like a really thin thing. So I like to start by closing in my corners so we don't have that. And then I'm going to grab another and do the same thing over here. Like so. Right there. Let me see. Let me see how this looks if I turn. There's a little lip. There we go. That's good. So, and now I'm going to take a couple more of these and scale this one down. And one more. Just like that. And it doesn't have to be real perfect. And you might want to get it a little close in some areas just so that there's like a little bit of definition of the rock coming behind like that. So maybe if I turn this one. Yeah, kind of like that. Like that. That looks good. So, and then if there's any other spaces, see like right there, there's a space right there. So I'm going to come back up to my original rock. And I'm simply going to just go ahead and place them right there like this to kind of cover that up. And then I also like to place a couple like kind of like around the base so that we've got kind of like an assortment of different rocks. Like so. And there's a bunch of different ones that you can use. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing this because it's just the tutorial. So now that we've got our big rocks placed, I'm going to go ahead and put my pool in. So I'm going to use the custom pool tool to do this. And you're going to have to get pretty close to these rocks and even come underneath them. So I'm actually starting underneath the rocks here. I'm just going to come out like this because I want my pool to be coming out of the water. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw like a weird, random, miscellaneous shape. And as you can see where I started from underneath that rock there. And I'm simply going to end where I started. And now I have my pool that comes out of the waterfall. And I think this looks kind of funny right here. So I'm actually going to, I'm actually going to close this in a little bit better. Like so. Just like that looks a little bit better to me. So now that I've got that in there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the way the pool looks, exiting out of the island living so I have more objects available. And I'm going to use this trim on my pool. And then I am going to come in with this wall. And then I am going to put on the floor pattern, I'm going to put the rough stick papers. And then additionally, I think I want to change my water to the sparkling. So there, that looks good, much more natural. So now that I've got that done, I'm ready to go ahead and start putting my plants and vegetation. So I'm going to go ahead and filter by island living again. And I'm going to come back to my debug objects. And I am going to use, I liked a little bit of color with this. So I actually like to use this tree. This tree is a really good tree. It's the exact right shape and it goes really good with these rocks. And I'm simply going to raise it up off the ground, and I'm going to fill in, see how the tops of the rocks, it looks kind of weird how that is, and it doesn't look real natural, but when you put your vegetation on there, it covers that stuff up. So I'm going to place several of these around or on top of my rocks. I might come in with an additional tree and make just like some more green on top of it. And then I'll put my vegetation around the pool as well. Well, guys, that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you guys learned something from watching this and that you enjoyed watching the video as well. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down into the comments below. If you did like the video, please be so kind as to give us a nice little thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Be sure to hit the bell icon so you receive a notification when we have new videos released. Check out the website, see some of the other cool stuff we got going on out there. And until next time, guys, happy simming, and I'll catch y'all later. Goodbye!